The winter of Victorian Britain was more than a season. It was a trial by ice and hunger, where survival was uncertain, and every breath carried the weight of cold and despair. Streets turned into frozen pathways of silence, and the poor suffered most when the frost refused to loosen its grip. Snow did not simply cover the city, it buried lives beneath it. Roofs collapsed under heavy weight, and horse-drawn carriages slipped on icy cobblestones. Fires burned low, coal was scarce, and the rich withdrew to heated halls, while the poor were left to face the cold winds that clawed through broken windows. For the working class, each day of winter was a struggle against death. Thin garments offered little protection, and many families shared a single blanket. Frost crept across their walls at night, and children slept huddled together to keep from freezing. Poverty made the cold sharper than any blade. The cost of coal rose during bitter winters, and those without money searched for scraps of wood in the streets. Entire neighborhoods were filled with the smell of damp smoke from poor fires. Many chose between food and heat, and both choices carried hunger and weakness in their wake. Factories did not stop for winter. Men, women, and children trudged through snow before dawn, their breath white in the air. Inside, machines roared while their bodies trembled from the chill. The cold followed them home, where damp walls and empty cupboards reminded them that warmth was a luxury they could not afford. Winter also brought sickness. Influenza and pneumonia spread quickly in cramped slums. Doctors were too few, and medicine was too expensive. The cold weakened bodies, and disease finished what hunger had already begun. Death notices filled newspapers, but the dead often outnumbered the space for printing. Graveyards grew crowded, and the ground was too hard to dig. Coffins waited in frozen earth until it softened again. Families mourned in silence, their grief blending with exhaustion. For the poor, there was no grand funeral, only a quiet goodbye whispered into the icy air. The streets told their own story. Homeless men curled in corners, their bodies stiff by mourning. Stray dogs wandered for scraps, and children begged with numb fingers. The city's lamps burned weakly against the darkness, and the silence of winter nights carried both fear and sorrow. Wealth created distance between classes. The upper class enjoyed roaring fireplaces, feasts, and thick coats of fur. Winter became a season of beauty for them, painted in snow and elegance. But the suffering of the poor was invisible, hidden behind the grand doors of mansions and carriages. Yet even in the darkest frost, small sparks of compassion remained. Charitable groups and churches handed out bread, soup, and coal. Neighbors shared what little they had, keeping each other alive through kindness. The warmth of humanity became a shield against the cruelty of winter. Children still played in the snow, their laughter echoing through alleyways despite hunger. Their joy became a reminder that even in hardship, life searched for light. It was this resilience that carried families through the season, though scars of frostbite and hunger often remained. Victorian winters shaped the culture of survival. Songs, poems, and stories described both beauty and suffering. Artists painted snow-covered streets, but behind every image was the hidden truth of lives lost in silence. History often remembered the elegance, but rarely the despair. The countryside offered no escape. Farmers faced frozen fields, and animals starved when grass disappeared beneath snow. Food supplies dwindled, and villages struggled to trade. Winter turned isolation into danger, cutting off families from help and leaving them at the mercy of frost. The cold did not discriminate, but society did. The poor were blamed for their suffering, accused of laziness, while the truth was hunger and frost offered no choice. Survival depended on strength, and strength was stolen by poverty. The struggle was not only against nature, but against injustice. London fog blended with winter smoke, wrapping the city in a choking shroud. Fires mixed with mist, creating air that poisoned lungs. Winter was not only cold, it was deadly in silence, filling homes with coughing and whispers of despair. The streets became both grave and prison. Despite this, life pressed forward. Weddings still took place, and markets still opened, though fewer customers came. Love letters crossed frozen mail routes, and soldiers trained in icy fields. Even in hardship, the routines of life carried on, though shadows of frost haunted every step. When spring finally came, it felt like a rebirth. Flowers broke through the earth, and rivers thawed, but winter's memory remained in weakened bodies and empty homes. Survivors carried the scars, and every future winter brought back fear of the same cruel season. The Victorian winter revealed the fragility of human life when faced with nature's indifference. No invention, wealth, or power could stop the frost entirely. It humbled cities and tested families, reminding all of the thin line between survival and death. Today, the struggles of those winters are often forgotten. The beauty of snowy streets remains in art, but the cries of the hungry and the silence of the dead are rarely told. Yet these hidden stories deserve memory, for they reveal not just suffering, but resilience in the face of unrelenting cold. The forgotten struggles of a Victorian winter teach us that history is not only about triumphs, it is about endurance, about the strength to carry on when life becomes a battle against nature itself. In the silence of frost, humanity proved it could endure, even when death walked close behind.